Hey guys, Sam again. So we're moving on with our Criterion series, and today we're going to be, sorry, I gotta move my chair. Today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite Criterion releases, and what I've always considered one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite discoveries from Criterion, which is Terry Gilliam's Brazil. Now this movie has a really fascinating history. But before we get into that, I want to talk about my own experience with it, where this was easily one of the first Criterions I ever received. I specifically remember getting it for Christmas and just obsessively devouring this disc, watching the movie multiple times, watching it with commentary, going through the special features. As I talked about in the Criterion video, it comes with the second disc that has all the behind the scenes stuff about the production, the behind the scenes behind the legal battle between Universal and Terry Gilliam, trying to figure out who would get the film and whose cut would be shown, either Gilliam's or the producer's cut, which cut out just about like 40 minutes of the film, which is completely insane. And I've watched it many times over the years, but it had been a long time since I last watched it, and I was really excited to revisit it. But I was also a little nervous because I was afraid what I now know about Terry Gilliam and about his opinions and the kind of person he is would have affected my viewing of this film. And I think that might have happened, but I also think my opinion on it has changed in general as I've become a little more critical of movies, or maybe we'll get into it. I'll just say my opinion has changed since the last time I watched it 2 or 3 years ago. If I was to sell Brazil, the elevator pitch is 1984 meets Monty Python. And so going in with that mindset, the plot of Brazil takes place in a dystopian future where the entire government and the city that everyone lives in is run by this entity called Central Services, who sort of is sort of like a corporation that runs everything, that sells all these products, that makes things work, quote unquote. But everything from air conditioning to computers to screens to cars is overly complicated and breaks all of the time, to the point where it's become just that fixing them or like using other items and tools that will also break to fix the first things that broke is a common occurrence and just a part of everyone's life. And one of those people living this everyday doldrum is Sam Lowry, who is your average worker that is pretty good at his job, probably a little overqualified, working at the Bureau of Information, I believe. And he just doesn't want promotion. He doesn't want to move from his position. He wants to just live his normal life. But his only sense of escape from his day-to-day are through his dreams, where he is this fantasy hero with wings and armor. And he's flying to the sky and saving this beautiful damsel in distress. And his whole world is sort of flipped around when, going through his office, he somehow he finds this girl that looks exactly like the girl in his dreams. And from there, he tries to pursue her, but at the same time gets convoluted and thrown into a terrorist secret plot. And is eventually sort of and is eventually considered an associate of this terrorist group. But the terrorist group, in reality, all they're really doing, they're just a bunch of rogue handymen that want to actually fix stuff without having to go through all the paperwork and waiting around, and want to actually help people. And so that is one thing. So to go off of that, one of my favorite aspects of Brazil is the satire and the social commentary, which Brazil is a movie that really, really hates where technology is taking society. And what I like is how everything in the movie reinforces that, right down to the plot, which is so convoluted and so unnecessarily complex. It's kind of hilarious just how many different steps there is, and how many different variations of what's happening, and just how coincidental it all can be. And how, everything in the movie is kicked off simply because a bug drops into a typewriter and misprints someone's name from Tuttle to Buttle. So rather than capturing the actual person that is a terrorist, They instead, the Central Services bags a normal family man who is tortured and killed, and so Lowry has to go out and grieve or talk to the wife about giving her a receipt or a return, a refund check for the mistake. And it's just it's very funny. It's very well done, and this satire of modern society, of office culture, of just complexity, and just like all these steps to everything, is really reflected in the production design, which is simply incredible. This movie has such a unique and fascinating look. It's almost like the way rooms are designed in Brazil reminds me of the mutated monster at the end of Akira, but rather than being this mound of flesh and organs and bones, it's just papers and filing cabinets and wires and ducts and just all this tools and random stuff crammed together. And it's just a world that's fascinating to analyze and examine. And I mean, some stills of the movie on their own are just hilarious, trying to imagine who in the world thought this was a good idea. I mean, one of my favorite details in Brazil is that everyone has these tiny computer screens that they work on so they can save space. But no one can see the computer screens because they're so small. So rather than making them bigger or providing people with bigger spaces or finding a bigger systemic solution, everyone just has like magnifying glasses that they look through to look at the computer screen, which takes up more space on the table. It's just it's little touches like that really show the genius of Gilliam as a visual person. And again, the visuals in the film, similar to Time Bandits, is really, really impressive. A lot of practical effects, a lot of wide angles that distorts everything and makes everything look ugly. And there's just some striking, beautiful imagery in this film, and many iconic moments and faces and just jokes. I mean, you could watch the movie with the sound off and probably get some enjoyment out of it, quite honestly. And this also extends into the performances and the humor. Jonathan Pryce plays Sam Lowry and kills it. He has this way of speaking that's very like anxious and almost traditionally or cliche British politeness to him, that is very endearing. But then he also has this like physicality and is able to do these pratfalls and these different types of physical humor. That's just incredible. I just think about during this truck chase scene where he's holding on to this truck from so many different angles and flipping around it, and it doesn't feel choreographed. It feels like he's just trying to hold on for dear life and manages to be spry enough to make it work. Everyone else in the movie, all the side characters are really great and very memorable and have a lot of great jokes, a lot of great lines. There's the head of the Ministry of Information, or whoever Sam Lowry first works for, who's very meek and very anxious all the time. You have his friend, Lowry's friend Jack, who is his best friend until he has to turn on him for reasons I won't get into for the plot. Robert De Niro is Buttle, the handyman terrorist, who's barely in the movie, but he does make an impression, especially with his mustache. It's a lot. And they all get a lot of iconic moments and really great stuff to do. And in general are just very entertaining. Now, here's where I start getting more into the issues I have with the film, which I think have been, the issues have become more apparent to me as time has gone on. For one, Gilliam needs an editor. I understand that this is Gilliam's vision, this is his edit, and the producer's cut, the Love Conquers All cut, as it's known, cuts out so much that the film becomes almost incomprehensible. And so those aren't necessarily the cuts I'm looking for. Really, I'm just looking for cutting a lot of excess fat in the length of scenes, and the length of jokes, and certain things and certain ideas that don't need to be there. And it does make a film that is 2 hours and a half long. It does make it drag out and just feel like it's never going to end at a certain point. It just goes so long, and I understand that might be the point since it is so convoluted and so out there. There did come a point about an hour and a half in, almost 2 hours in, I lost a lot of interest, and I'm unsure if that is due to me having seen this movie so many times that I know where it goes, or if the movie genuinely just has really bad pacing problems, and I think it might be a mixture of both. Um, One of my other problems with the film is with the lead female character, played by, I feel awful, I always forget her name because I always think that it's Gina Davis. It's not Gina Davis, they look nothing alike. It is Kim Greist, who plays Jill Layton, the girl of Sam's dreams. And she begins as a really interesting character in an interesting way to reinforce the themes of the film and the final idea of the film, where she is this sort of unobtainable dream for Sam, right? Where we as an audience and as Sam don't really know anything about her, but we get a sense she really isn't like this dream girl that he's been imagining in his head, this damsel in distress that needs saving. She is a very capable, caring, compassionate person who just wants to get through her life and, you know, might be a part of a terrorist group or a revolution group. And when they first meet, you know, almost 2 hours into the movie, very far into the movie, it does seem like the movie might be going more in that direction of reality crushing your dreams. Of she doesn't like Sam Lowry, which makes complete sense. He just comes onto her so hard and is so awkward and abrasive. I would find it difficult for anyone to enjoy being around him, especially when they first meet him like that. She's so against him and so negative and so doesn't want him to be there. And then they go their separate ways, and then as the film is like drawing towards its conclusion, she just randomly shows up to his apartment, and now they're a couple, now they're a thing, now they're in love, and it just really, it's a big stretch, it's a big jump, and it feels very weird and jarring to me. Because, and this is getting into spoilers now to discuss the ending, which the ending sequence is at once really genius and is great in terms of like reinforcing the dreams of the film, and it makes sense, but it also I'll just get into it. I think the ending wants to be shocking in that Lowry does obtain his dream girl, right? They do get together, they consummate it with sex, and then immediately the next morning it all gets taken away from him, and you're supposed to be shocked and scared and in awe and just like, oh, like, damn it, like he didn't get her, like he had it, it was right there in his hand, and he lost it all. And then you have the ending, then you have the final sequence where he believes that he's going to be saved by the terrorist group, and he goes through this fantastical journey, and all this crazy stuff happens, and then he imagines that he's escaped with her, and that they've gone off in the countryside to live a life together, but in reality he's just stuck in his head, and has been essentially he's been lobotomized by this culture. And so I feel like to Gilliam, and to the other writers of the film, what is really scary to them and what is emotionally like impactful to them is obtaining your dream and then have it taken from you. That is what scares them. That's what is impactful to them. When I believe it's more impactful and would say a lot more and would fit better with what the film is trying to say if you try to obtain your dream, where you believe your dream is reality, and then realize that it's not real. So I think it would have been better and would have fit more in line with the ending, with the final conclusion of the film, which is that your dreams may not come true. You may not always get what you want. Just because you believe something is true, just because you have a certain way of wanting to do things, that's not going to enact change. That's not going to get you what you want. And I think that hurts more and is a better personal journey and a personal growth, which Sam Lowry could have achieved and then regressed back into this dreamscape for the end as a means of coping and escaping from the fact that he's going to be lobotomized. And that whole romance, that whole plot really does not sit well with me and gave me the sour taste at the end of the film. Despite the final sequence I still think being really incredible and visually visually incredible. I just think it's so well done and is so impactful and is a great twist, especially if you've never seen the film and don't know what's happening. And so because of those reasons, Brazil to me doesn't hold up as well as I would like. I think it's still one of the most visually impressive films Gilliam's ever made. It reminds me of Blade Runner in that I don't necessarily want to live in this world, but I want to be in this world. I want to analyze it and study it and figure it out. And I think a lot of the characters are engaging. I think the humor and the satire is really good most of the time. I just think the movie needed a better editor, and I think they needed to really touch up on Jill as a character and on everything else happening with her and the romance subplot. But overall, I think Brazil is great, and the Criterion release of Brazil is one of the best releases they've ever done, because you not only get the movie and commentary from Gilliam and from the actors, but you also get the second disc, which comes with the 30-minute behind-the-scenes documentary that is edited like Brazil, the film, and then you also get the hour-long documentary about Gilliam's fight with Universal to get his movie shown and to not get the producer's cut released. And then, best of all, you get the producer's cut, the hour-and-a-half long cut that was only shown, I think, on Australian TV is what it says. And you get to see, like, it puts into perspective why fighting for this movie is important. Because while I may have issues with Brazil's pacing and with the way it presents certain things, that producer's cut is a train wreck. It's insane. They cut out all the dream sequences. They changed the ending. They cut out so many details in the film to try to give it a linear narrative, and they just totally missed the point of everything. It's incredible. Sorry, this is totally backtracking. I completely forgot to mention the music from Michael Kamen, which is incredible. There is this motif of using the classic song Aquilo do Brasil, sung by Jeff Mulder, and weaving that motif into the soundtrack at every single chance it can get, leading to so many different versions, like classical uplifting versions, jazz versions, there's like a typewriter version. It's incredible, ending in the end credits version, which is sort of like a Brazilian dance party song that tonally doesn't fit with the ending, but also fits way too well, especially with the dark tones and how it contradicts everything, how the movie contradicts everything in general. But yeah, that's my take on Brazil. It used to be one of my favorite movies, and now I'm a little unsure about that. But it is still one of the best Criterion releases, and unless they have these special features on the Criterion channel, I'd recommend picking it up simply for being a film history archive and one of the best things, some of the most work they've put in putting out a release and some of the most genius choices they've made with special features. But thank you all for watching. Next week we'll be going over 2 more Akira Kurosawa movies in the double pack of Yojimbo and Sanjuro, which I'm really excited to talk about. But if you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you want to see more of what I'm doing, check out my channel. Come back here next time for when the next video is going to pop up. And hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.